Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Immersive Learning Research Network's special seminar on Burns Night in honor of Robert Burns, the official poet of Scotland. We've got a panel of esteemed guests here. If we could maybe go through and introduce yourselves, that would be fantastic. Welcome everybody to the webinar.
Hello.
Maybe Alan, you can start.
Oh, hi. Thank you, Jonathan, for that. My name's Alan. I'm from the University of St Andrews, the Open Virtual Worlds group, and we're interested in immersive learning, addressing sustainable development, in particular climate action, and we really think that there's a great fit with Robert Burns and his ethos and his poetry, that if he was alive today, he would definitely be part of the anti-climate change movement. And so for that reason, we thought that today was a good day to celebrate him on those themes.
Yes, thank you. Jackie, you want to introduce yourself?
So my name is Jackie. I'm the Heritage and Digital Curator at Timespan. And yeah, we've been on, so as an organization, we're very interested in the topic of the climate crisis. And we have worked with our digital partners at St Andrews for several years. So what's really interesting for us is reconstructing archaeological landscapes using immersive virtual technology and sharing messages about climate change and all sorts of information that people can actually interact with and take appropriate action themselves. So it's a very, very useful tool for us.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome, Catherine. Hi, we're just getting started. Esther, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Eszter, mutatkozz be. Mutatkozz be, Eszter.
Yes, hi.
Nincs hangod. Oké.
Most már van?
Igen.
I am Esther Acél from Hungary, from Budapest. I'm historian in Hungarian National Museum.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Welcome. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Ildiko?
Hi, I am Ildiko Fejes. I am from Hungary too, from Budapest. I am the festival director of the Film Festival of Avicom. And I worked at the Hungarian National Museum too, but I am an independent consultant now. And we had a common project with Ellen, with the St Andrews University, because Avicom and the St Andrews University organized a common conference last September. Last September in St Andrews, and there was the award ceremony of the Film Festival 2023 joined the conference. And Esther and me, we received the invitation letter for this event, online event, from Ellen and Michael, who is the president of Avicom.
Oh, excellent. Well, welcome. Thank you. Wow, that's great work you're doing. Skuli, would you like to introduce yourself, please, sir?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Skuli Gunnarsson from Iceland. I'm director of the Gunnar Gunnarsson Institute here in the east of Iceland, and we have been working on some collaborative projects with St Andrews and Timespan and some other good partners. And we are now in some projects where we are going forward with using some emergent technologies in actually to monitor the climate change, and not least also just to record and document the cultural landscape here in the surroundings, because we are already seeing some impacts of climate change here in Iceland, not only in the retreating glaciers, but also in more slides and things like that. Then also what is a particular interest in my mind is also the green transition, because here in the Nordic countries that puts high pressure on the communities, and mainly the small small communities in where there are very few people living, and it's easy to just come in with some green energy projects, which of course impact the cultural landscape and the heritage. So it's delightful to be here today with you on a Burns night, and yeah, cheers to that.
Cheers. And my good friend and colleague Catherine Cassidy is on the call as well. Catherine, would you like to say hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. I'm know most of you. I'm Catherine Ann Cassidy. I am at the University of St. Andrews, and I work with Alan with Open Virtual Worlds. And I'm a researcher with my main focus being about digitizing and recording threatened cultural and natural heritage, and then being able to find strategies for communities to take over that digitizing and recording to preserve their own heritage. So I've worked with multiple projects with Schoolie and with Jackie, and I've known John for a while now with iLearn.
Yeah. All right, great. And I know that there are some people in our audience who are worthy of the panel as well. And perhaps we can have an opportunity to engage with them as we go on. But I think, Alan, you're sort of the MC, the lead on our Burns Night seminar. Maybe you want to take it over, and we'll find some time to engage some people as we go.
Thank you very much for that, Jonathan. And it's good to see everybody here. We were going to traditionally, a Burns Night would start with a toast to the haggis. Well, it wouldn't actually start with that. The first thing that would happen would be some toasts and soup, and then you bring the haggis in. Now, I don't have a cooked haggis, and it's kind of difficult for us to share that, but I do have a haggis.
Oh yes.
which will be cooked and eaten later. This is a traditional haggis in that it has meat inside it, and it's wrapped up in a sheep's stomach. More common, you would have a plastic outside and some meat. And there are very good vegetarian and vegans versions of this. So there's nothing about the Burns Night that has to be inclusive or exclude people who don't like eating those meats. But I think that we were going to start off because Jackie Aiken is here, and we're really pleased that after the soup there would then be the toast to the haggis, which is written by Burns. It's on Old Scots, so it's a little bit impenetrable, but you can kind of get the meaning of it. To be clear, although pudding is something that is these days most people expect something sweet, actually black pudding and white pudding and haggis all come under the term of pudding. So I think there's something about chief of the place or something. Anyway, Jackie, could you take us away with it?
Yes, thank you, Alan. You might have to hold up the haggis while
I'll hold it up while you do the toast too.
Address to the haggis, because you've got to think about how dramatic it is as you plunge the knife into the haggis and tear it apart and then start feasting on it. So this was written by Robbie Burns in 1786, not long after he went to Edinburgh, and it's become the centerpiece of Burns' Night's Feasting. And the kind of pudding side of it is the way that it's cooked and steamed in this lining of the sheep's stomach, giving it that taste. So here we go. Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain o' the puddin' race. Aboon the ma ye take your place, painch tripe or thern. Wheel are ye wordy o' a grace as leng's ma arm? The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hurdies like a distant hill. Your pin wad help to mend a mill in time o' need, while through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic, labour dipped, and catch ye wi' ready slicked, trenching your gushing entrails brick like ony ditch. And then, the graceful sight, warm, reeking, and rich. Then horn for horn they stretch and strive, deal tick the hindmost on they drive, till their wheel-swelled kites belie are bent like drums. The auld goodman, maist like to rid, bethankit hums. Is there that our his French ragout, or olio that sta a stow, or fricassee wad mak her spew with perfect scunner, look down with sneering scornful view on sic a dinner? Poor deal, see him o'er his trash as freckless as a withered rash. His spinkle shank a gid whiplash is knave a knit. Thro' bloody flood and field to dash, oh how unfit. But mark the rustic haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread. Clap in his wally knee a blade, he'll mak it whistle, and legs and arms and heads will sned like taps o' thistle. Ye powers, wha mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill o' fare. All Scotland wants nae skink and fare that jups in luggies. But if ye wish her grateful prayer, gie her the haggis.
Cheers.
Thank you, Jackie. You gave that some
Well done.
And it was great to hear Burns and Burns did his poetry in both English and Scots, and so that was obviously in the Scots language, and I think what we would do next would be to just have a drink as in celebration of Jackie's rendition there of a toast to a haggis. So thank you very much. And there we go. This is what is it? It's Lefroig. So this hails from Islay, which is significant. So here's the thing then about whiskey. So Islay is significant because it is the place in the UK that is most exposed to, or one of 4 places that are most exposed to climate change. It being one of the western, one of the inner Hebrides actually, but on the west coast of Scotland, quite low lying, and so is exposed to increasing extreme weather and also to rising sea levels. But also Islay is the place in Scotland, maybe is the place in Scotland, the biggest concentration of whiskey distilleries. I think there are 9 whiskey distilleries on the island. So this is one of them. And in fact, whiskey itself is very vulnerable to climate change for a number of reasons. The first reason is, the reason why whiskey works so well in Scotland is in a large part due to our weather, that it doesn't get too hot, and whiskey has to take time to mature, 8 years for a single malt at least, and during that time it sits in a barrel. And there's a great book, there's a great film called The Angel Share, and the angel share is the bit of the whiskey that evaporates off as it is sitting in the barrels. Now you only have to increase the temperature a small amount, and that angel share grows, and the bigger the angel share, the less the Allen share, and that obviously is a bad thing. So there's that, but there's also the flavor that you get is an important balance of the water, the nature of the water that is used to make it, and the water runs off the mountainside and is instilled with peat, which helps give us the peaty flavor. Now, if the peat dries out and the water dries out and the temperatures change, then the balance between all the different components that go to make the whiskey change, and what was once Talisker 10 years, the Talisker whiskey starts to taste nothing like it. And so, on those 2 counts, really, climate change threatens the legacy of Burns as tied up in places like Islay, and tied up in terms of the drink. Interestingly, whiskey translates into Gaelic, which was the predominant language in West Wales, as to water of life. So essentially, it means whiskey means alcohol. Essentially, because there is no need to have these southern concepts like gin and so on. But actually, that's not true, because one thing that should be known is that in the Western Isles, the Lord of the Isles, Islay was the centre of the Lords of the Isles, so it's kind of like a kingdom, and seafaring folk had travelled a lot by sea, and so the Lords of the Isles would be sat, on Islay, drinking out of flasks, made in the Mediterranean, and quite possibly, drinking wine from France and Spain and so on. So there's this long, quite high culture which is associated with these places as well. So I think that the sort of main course that we were going to embark on in terms of eating the haggis would be a discussion of these 3 things. On the one hand, we have Rebecca here, Eschauzier, who comes from a background of commitment and activism for over climate change, and is very passionate about the subject, and also has been instrumental in bringing together people in the activist movement and with NEMO, the National Network of European Museum Organizations, and now also with Avicom in talking about how the mutual energies of museums and activism can synergize and can get together. And of course, so there we have Scully and everyone's done their introductions. So I think if we could just sort of go round and people could talk for a couple of minutes on the topic, and then once we've gone round, we can then enter a sort of informal discussion and questioning each other. I think this is all within the context of immersive learning. And for me, the great thing about immersive learning is that it enables us to experience things that are difficult to experience in reality. And the reason why that's great is because experiential learning it's a quality form of learning. And the thing that we find it difficult to experience is climate change. Although we are increasingly experiencing what it's like now, it's difficult for us to experience what it's going to be like in 10 years times, 20 years times, 100 years time. And it's also difficult for us to experience what it's like at the poles or in places that are remote to us. So experiential learning has the potential for overcoming the psychological distance that people experience with respect to climate change, to make it something that is more material and more real to them. And our hope is that by integrating these three things, the activism, the museums, and experiential learning, immersive learning, we will be able to have a material effect upon behavior of individuals, but also behavior of organizations and behavior of governments, because behavior needs to change on those three levels in order to mitigate and stop what is happening with the climate changing. So that's my sort of take on it. I'm sorry to go on for a bit long and maybe steal other people's words, but I'm sure that other people will be far more eloquent. So
cheers.
Well worth reinforcing that. Yeah, thank you there, Alan. Cheers.
Yes.
So if I'm seeing it, I mean, people feel free to come in, but I mean, Rebecca, I'll be interested to hear from you. Maybe you could set some of the tone, or would you be interested in coming in now, or would you like to wait a while?
Yeah, sure. No, I feel like I'm the one here that has the least to say about immersive learning and all your experts on, because I'm not, clearly. So I'm here to learn, I hope, and to connect with your trade. Yeah, what do you want to know? Alan?
Well, I mean, if you could maybe say a bit about why the whole climate issue is important to you.
Yeah, sure. I want to live, basically, and I'm actually really scared and sad about everything that's happening and disappearing and being destructed. And I'm really very angry about the fact that this is not because of, the climate changing. It's because we're changing the climate. It's because there's people in power that are keeping a system into place that is wrecking the only livable planet that we know of. And we're talking about not having as much snow as the previous years, and we're talking about having hot summers, but there is actually people that today are losing everything already, and there is species going extinct today, and they were 10 years ago, right? And they were 50 years ago already. We're in the 6th mass extinction, and the people in power and the people that are benefiting from this system are just not willing to change. And I think that that anger and that pain, because it actually physically pains me at times, that they give me energy to do acts and to get up every morning and to decide to not want to live in a world where that's the truth, and to live my life trying to change that system. So that's why I am an activist. In my spare time, I have to say I'm an educator in my working life, and in my spare time I go block roads or talk to museum organizations about how we can work together and keep the planet livable.
Thank you very much. That was very
Cheers to you,
eloquent.
Rebecca. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure, Ildiko, did you come here expecting to speak? Because it would be lovely to hear from you from a sort of Avicom perspective.
I don't know I don't know. Michael will be here because I think he will speak about the goals and the plans of Avicom. I think not me is the perfect person who has to speak about the Avicom plans, because now I am not an Avicom board member. I am an Avicom member, but not an Avicom board member. But I know that, in my opinion, that is in the museum area is a very important question, the climate changes and the reflection of the museums to the climate changes. This is a very important topic. And for example, ICOM Hungary will have a workshop and a little conference in Budapest next week, I think, in Budapest. And there is a lot of people who want to come to this workshop, because I think museums aren't the different institutions, not an isolated institutions in the society. Museums has to reflect all the questions about our society, about the climate changes, the climate change, about the development of the technologies and everything. And when I worked in at the Hungarian National Museum, I organized a yearly conference, Museum Digit Conference, and in every conference we had a lot of presentation about the museum's answers to the climate changes. That's all. That's my little speech, the only little speech.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. And I'm pleased that we can now welcome Julia and Michael Derglo, and perhaps can we promote Ian to come in here? Would you both like to just introduce yourselves briefly?
I don't know. I don't have. I have only the program of this event, and that's all.
Okay.
I don't have any other information about Michael. I know that he will be the dessert. That's all.
That's right. Michael
all.
Michael has another commitment, and so will be joining us as soon as that commitment is completed, and we'll be pleased to welcome him in then, so he'll be able to say something towards the end of proceedings. But Michael Duglo is here. And so, hi, Michael.
Squax Pesia. Et je suis some cat Louis Squax. He's a quicknum ox machnik Catholics Kawaska Cloutla. Good morning, everybody. My name is Standing Grizzly Bear. That's my given name. My English name is Mike Durglow. And I met Jonathan, I don't know how many years ago, Jonathan, 10 years ago or so, maybe more. He used to work at Salish Kootenai College when I was the environmental director for the tribe, and back in 2012 is when I coordinated the effort to develop a climate change strategic plan for the tribe, and we were one of the first tribes in the United States to do so. I think we were the third ones. Swinomish on the West Coast were the first. Nez Perce was working on theirs when I started coordinating our effort. And since then, I've helped a lot of different tribes develop climate strategies. I actually got an award from President Obama. I got to go to the White House and received called the Champion for Change Award. That was back in 2017, I think. I've been doing this work for a long time. I've been working for the tribe for 40 years as of July 1st. And just in the last, well, as of October 1, I became the full-time climate coordinator for the tribe. I've been working in tribal historic preservation, natural resources, and just recently got an invite from the Secretary of Interior, Deb Haaland, to serve on the Advisory Council for Climate Adaptation and Science. So been doing a little bit of work. Continues on, and just like what Rebecca said, you know, it's about survival. It's about being able to live in it, and it's also about trying to make a difference for the next generations. One of the things, and I shared a link with you guys if you want to check that out. There was an article. We did some, they're called story maps, ArcGIS story maps for our plan. And if you're interested in our plan, you can check that out at CSK. I'll put the link in the chat, but it's csktclimate.org. Thanks for inviting me, Jonathan. We'll have to get together for coffee or some good whiskey or whatever you guys are having.
Yeah.
A little bit early for me. I still got coffee, so. Good to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, Michael. It's great to hear about what you've been doing, and you know, the topic, I think, touches so many people, and it's great to have the different people from different walks of life here today. I'm great to see that the other Michael is here. But in the meantime, Julia, would you like to say hi?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia Benjamin. I'm the of Times, which if you'd like, I can. I would like just to introduce here, Jack. Okay. Yeah, my connection is unstable, but I hope you can hear me well. Yeah. Okay.
And now,
super.
yes.
So we are a tiny organization in the north of Scotland, in the east coast of the Highlands, and we are trying our best to address climate change and climate justice. Last year we launched the program Coastal Commons, This is a contemporary art and heritage program that reflects upon extractivism and how extractivism is particularly affecting our coastal communities, but we are trying also to look beyond our area. So we are trying to look at like finding alliances, because climate change, doesn't affect just our locality. And then there is the other layer of climate justice and climate reparation that we are trying to look at. Particularly, I don't know if you're familiar with the term extractivism. Comes from the struggles from the Global South, particularly from Chile in the 90s, and doesn't refer just to oil and gas extraction, but is a broader reflection over the accumulation of resources and the actually what is like driving towards what is bringing us towards the climate collapse that we are currently seeing. So through this program, we are trying to address and we are doing so through our collection, but also through a contemporary art program. With Time Span, we try to work through an holistical approach. That means that all the actions, activities we do are interconnected and dialogue between each others. We are reflecting a lot about commons and practices of commoning. What does it mean? How can we rethink also our practices and share knowledges and work through co-production and co-design together with our communities. So this is a big thing. It's not an easy path, and we are learning and unlearning continuously. So yeah, we are extremely grateful for this big fund that we recently received to develop more this project. So hopefully over the next 2 years, we will have a specific focus looking at our collection, and we are collaborating with the University of St. Andrews for what concerns the digitization of the heritage. I just wanted to briefly mention an exhibition that is still on, and we opened the exhibition last year. It's titled Beatrice, Transition Under Petrocapitalism. I'm mentioning this exhibition because this is a reflection on petrocultures and the oil and gas industry in the area, so in the North Sea. So the impact of this industry, but also the narration that the industry built around itself. So we worked with 3 artists from 3 different sides of the coast of the North Sea. And the title is Beatrice because it's connected with the oil rig that is just in front of us, in front of Helmsdale. And the curious fact is that it became part of also the history of Time Span, our organization, because it was our very first logo. So we are trying also to deconstruct all the narrations, but also our institutional history and the impact of the oil and gas industry on arts and culture. So this is something that I think in the last 5-10 years has changed a lot. So we are much more critical. It's good also to look at the past and our own history. So we thought was the best way to start a program on extractivism, so self-reflecting and thinking about our history. But I'd like, if Jackie doesn't mind, to pass the word to her, and maybe she can tell us more about, specifically about heritage, the digitization, and the role also, and how this is going to be interconnected with our research on climate change and climate justice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and thank you, Julia. Yeah, well, before I even say about, so for me, kind of looking at this, apart from the work we do at Timespan, which I will allude to, so where I live in Bro, so we're on the coast, we're being battered frequently with the weather, and we've got flooding, we've got coastal erosion, we've got pollution, we've got everything, and it's only been heightened. So so I've been monitoring an area of our coastline for about 20 years. We are involved in rescue excavations of sites that are on the coast that become uncovered and through undermining and coastal erosion. When these sites come out, we've got to decide, what do you do with them? Just leave them so that we just let them erode away? Do we spend millions in protecting them? Or do we do these medium-scale rescue excavations and retrieve as much information and material culture that we can? So there are big issues around here. Some of the other issues I'd like you to highlight that we have in Scotland, and I'm sure it's the same for everybody else, is that there are inadequate protective laws around our cultural heritage. And that goes without saying. That's obvious. But the other thing that's important is there's not enough support for local communities and the power of the local community voice to say what's important to them, what they want to see protected, and then to be able to mobilize themselves into some kind of body that can lobby their governments, their local authorities, and relevant organizations. In Scotland, we're very fortunate. I've had a very long-lasting relationship with the Scape Trust, and they have been able, and they are based at St Andrews University as well, and they are one branch of archaeology in Scotland, but they're a small organization and they deal with the whole coastline of Scotland. So what do you do? What do you pick and choose? Where do you go? So I really think a conversation around, and the thing is, if you don't know what to protect, how can you protect it? And what is locally important? Because I hear this word nationally significant, and I think it's a very outdated narrative. We've got to really think about what is locally important, what is important to local people. Sometimes cultural heritage is not about stones, or it's not about, it's actually about a space in the landscape. It's about a space that we want to preserve because it's a commemorative site. It is important to a local indigenous population. So I think we've got to think about cultural heritage in a much wider way than we deem what needs or what should be protected. It's an issue I really get in. But anyway, but in terms of what we've been doing at Timespan, as Julia has said, there's lots of things that we see happening that we are very much at the forefront of. And one of that is, so as a museum, you'd think our remit is to preserve and display objects, but the role of museums has changed. And to be honest, Timespan's never been a traditional museum. And we've always taken a stance in lobbying governments, lobbying people who fund what we do, and as I say, our local authority as well. So it's really important that we are involved in our forward strategy at trying to make a change for the better for ourselves, our community and society. And we're looking at a big redevelopment of the museum, the whole building at the moment, a more sustainable green transition, but also within the themes that we have in our museum collections, because they're very outdated, they're very outmoded. There's nothing about climate change, there's nothing about Highland colonialism, there's nothing about equality, diversity, well there is, but it's more in a traditional sense. And there is so much of a movement forward that we want to be very much a part of that change that is shifting at the moment. Immersive technology is really important because it's been really good to develop, to use immersive technology to reconstruct landscapes. For our area, for example, we have amazingly rich Iron Age landscapes. Within just 50 miles square, we have literally hundreds and hundreds of Iron Age roundhouses, brocks, farming settlements, but they are under risk. They were under risk in the Iron Age. They were under risk in medieval times, and they are under risk today. Climate change has accelerated today, but it has been there in the past as well. One of the problems in the past with these settlements is the encroachment. The temperatures in the Iron Age, we're talking about 2,500 years ago, became much more humid, much bit colder. Obviously, that's a different to today where things are getting warmer. Back then, the major change was the encroachment of the peatlands into these settlements. So people that were living in upland settlements had to migrate down these hillsides, and it put competition in farming settlements. So we find the archaeology, it is preserved miraculously in these waterlogged conditions. With climate change today, the real threat to waterlogged archaeology, which preserves materials, it preserves bodies, it preserves all the kind of stuff that we date, pollen, all that kind of stuff. So with the increasing temperatures, everything's drying out. So it really has a great threat. And that's just one of the areas of threat that we will see with changing climates and conditions. And, you know, we really have to look at our archaeological landscapes. That's just one thing that's happening to them. But I would go back to the beginning. We've got to know what to protect because the national records are inadequate. They haven't got all the sites recorded. They aren't recording landscapes. They're recording little sites. We need whole landscapes recorded. And we need to think about what the cultural heritage is and what it includes. And more importantly, we have to co-produce this with our community and communities and people. And we all need to be part of developing those strategies, but making the decisions as well. So yeah, it's a very challenging time as we go forward. And these are some of the things that we're going to be looking at Timespan in our programme this year as part of our People's Mobile Archive, ex-Coastal Commons, and the other parts of our programme as well. Sorry, I went on a bit.
You did.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you,
I think,
Jack.
Ian, have you got some visuals that go with that, maybe? So this is I think this is an example of a touchscreen exhibit. There is an immersive headset version of this as well, but this is easier to show over the internet. So it demonstrates something about content that it is immersive, but also being able to apply it in different contexts. And so this is the landscape.
It's quite nice because here you can see the trees have moved down. All the trees in the upper hillsides have gone because, and the thing is, the trees are carbon friendly vegetation, you know. So if the trees go, we can't hold the carbon in the trees. So again, with the peat encroachment, yeah, peat is good for carbon as well, don't get me wrong. But yeah, so it really has made a difference with the peat encroachment. But our peatlands are hugely important to preserve. They're our main carbon holders of carbon. Yeah, and it just shows you how the landscape has changed. But as things get warmer, our peatlands are going to change, and our the way that it stores carbon is going to be very much depleted. And here's some roundhouses and cultivation. So this is about 2,500 years ago, with more sustainable ways of farming, of course, and more organic foods, and also kind of looking at roundhouses with more sustainable making of clothing as well, which is another big area. But in terms of the landscape, forestry, oh, here we go inside.
And I suppose I have to, I mean, it's nice to see this and so on, but I have to ask, what sort of reception do you get from people who are visiting the museum?
They have been very receptive. We've really only, as Alan, we've only really, we fitted out our new digital hub. We got a new, we call it the green room. It's a big digital exhibit room in our museum where you can come in, you can wear the immersive Oculus Rift headset. So people have been so receptive to this. It's a really unique way of connecting with a landscape. And therefore, if you connect in that way more directly, you're able to take on the messages about what you're looking at. So if it's a message about climate change, if it's a message about misuse of resources, or, how things have changed, this is a really good way. So people really, we put a lot of time and effort into how it works with people. So, how people interact with the digital exhibits, we put a lot of work into. And it's as important to put as much work into the landscape as it is into the site. So the roundhouses and the landscapes, and also the animated characters as well. People were saying to us, it'd be great to see people in these models. So we put the people in, and that's gone down really well with the help of the St Andrews team, who've done amazing work on the costumes and the different animation that they've used for the characters. It's gone down really well. So I would say to everybody, if you're thinking about doing this, then it does work well to have that in it. And we also, thanks to Catherine and Ian, and as part of the team, we have got an Iron Age object collection. So the team have scanned our objects. They could be Iron Age pots or lamps or tools for weaving, and then they placed them into the model where they would normally find their own home. They're in the setting of the roundhouse. So people in our museum can interact in the headset inside the roundhouse, and then they can go and actually see the object on display in our museum. And I think that's a really nice way of connecting. But saying that, we need a lot more work, because the models are great. I see the models as, it's what you add to the models is what's important. The messages, the information, it is that really that gets the message across. So I think they are portals for sharing information about climate change, yeah, very interactive indeed. With so yeah, there's just a nice example. But maybe Catherine can say a bit.
Can certainly add on to it, but I mean, everything you've said between community, between preservation of at-risk sites, and what's important and how to visualize it and communicate it, it's all tick boxes for me. And then where I come from then, because museums are the communicators, the ones that will be, adding all that interpretation and using different narratives to describe history, but describe history in order to impact the future and impact now. I look at how then tools, digital tools and infrastructures can help museums and also then their communities to do all the things, and give them agency to do the things needed on their own, so it's not centralized. And even speaking from a university, it's something that, you know, I want to give away. I don't want to be the one holding this information of how to do things. And that's even tying into what Skuli was saying, was it goes all the way to finding sites and recording sites, like you said, Jackie, but then also monitoring those sites in ways that community knows and they've seen change or they've noticed change, but being able to digitize that and record that in order for it to be used by different, you know, organizations or groups or museums or archaeological groups like Escape, and to start to flag it and enact preservation, but also keep it within community too, because like you said, even if it's something of national importance, you know, well, what does that mean? You know, okay, it's great for a nation, but what about the locality that and the people that care about it? And then kind of advancing on to then things like this, where you can 3D digitize model or objects. And these are of objects, but you can also do of landscapes, of whole sites, archaeological sites. And then also then the next step is what we've seen then being able to kind of combine those things with then virtual reconstructions based on data and facts like archaeological drawings, plans, maps, OS data for the UK, being able, and bioarchaeology, you know, being able to know what was there and what was farmed at a certain time and point in time, to then be able to kind of build back this landscape and understand, you know, how things have changed and what changed them. You know, was it people changing them? Was it environment changing them? And then adding that all together just creates a richer narrative to be able to communicate and to be able to make some impact on people that are ready to receive it or don't even know that they're ready to receive it. Because if you go into time span, you know, you might be thinking that, okay, it's a museum in the Highlands. I kind of know what to expect, but that's what I think you're trying to change and do differently, and you are doing it differently, to kind of generate different conversations and deep conversations about community and environments and people, and how that's affected not just in the Highlands of Scotland, but how it then kind of, you know, resounds through the world and through time and history. So it's all keys to then be able to communicate and have people feel, and then the next step then would be action, and hopefully then their next step would be activism or some kind of movement towards change.
Thank you very, very much.
Can I ask a
that.
question?
Yeah.
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 How do you see that step more detailed, if you could tell me more about it? The step from being in this virtual roundhouse and that environment and getting all that information into getting people to take actual action and to yes, can you say more about that?
I mean, I could say a little bit, but I think between Skuli might actually be able to say something about it, because he's part of a project, well, we're part of a project too, but called Dash or Dache. But that the idea of this kind of community agency of monitoring, digitizing, communicating, and then activism kind of all kind of is cyclical and then feeds on one another. That then once you have kind of the community buy-in or even the visitor buy-in, that there's just more of an audience to be able to draw from, to then start into the activism. Even if it's like having an app to monitor or to find and monitor sites. So then when somebody goes through an exhibition that talks about that, and you have this kind of impactful narrative that then says, oh, you can do this too. And let's say that they're either a visitor or they're part of the community, then all of a sudden there's that, you know, you're dangling that carrot to say, hey, if you want to do something, if you feel like, you know, you can do something, and even if it's a small step and a very small drop in the ocean, it's important here. And then there's something there to do it. And perhaps that's a spark. You never know what someone will take up, but at least it's in facilitating and having something there for somebody to jump in.
Yeah. And we plan to use the same technology to show people alternative climate futures, so that people can be immersed in the landscape as it will be, you know, in the future. And also, you know, as people come into the museum and go out of the museum, there can be stuff, you know, that make the connection with climate change and climate action.
I think Michael Durgalo had something to add. Is it?
Oh,
Mike?
great.
Thanks, Jonathan. Very interesting stuff. And I just sent Jonathan an email asking for all of your guys' contact information and where you're located. One of the things, I've done a lot of work. So I'm a tribal member here, born and raised on a reservation. My grandmother did not speak English, so I was raised in a culture. And even so, I've done a project up in Glacier National Park looking at climate impacts to cultural sites and resources. And one of the things that we really need to be careful about is sharing that information to the public. The elders sometimes do not want those sites or those places open to the public. You know, we learned a valuable lesson when I don't know if you guys are familiar with NAGPRA, Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, came about because I believe it was the Forest Service asked the tribes to put a mark on the map showing them where sacred sites were, burials and such a thing. And I think they did it not you know, they didn't mean harm. They had good intentions, but once they put a mark on a map, that's public information. And what happened after that was people start digging up the graves and stealing the artifacts and all those kind of things. So that's just one of the things that I'm hearing. And I hear what you're saying about climate impacts to these sites and what can we do. In that project I did at Glacier National Park, we came up with alternatives. I mean, some of the sites were being impacted by erosion, some by fire, some, you know, a lot of different things. And one of the things we did was came up with alternatives to protect those sites and then presented them to the elders. And the elders might say, no, we don't want you going there. We don't want you to disturb the site. We don't want you to do anything. Let nature take its course, even though we know that climate change is escalating the damage that's being done. We don't want you to do anything. So that, and I'm really glad to meet everybody. I have to go. So thanks, Jonathan. And
Thank you so much for coming along.
you can share my contact information too, Jonathan, and
I will. I'll do that.
reach out to me, please. Thanks.
That's
Thank
great.
you, sir.
Thank you so much. So much. It would be great to hear a bit from the north, Scully.
Yeah.
Close to the Arctic Circle.
Good time to stand in. I mean, here in Iceland, of course, we don't have as long heritage history as in America with the natives there. And but I totally agree with all that has been said, and how we can actually use the immersive technology to well, kind of raise awareness of things. And because from my point of view, I mean, the more we know about our environment, about our heritage, the more we care. And if the local community is not so much aware about the heritage in their surroundings, it's very hard for them also to protect it or even to share and raise awareness of the changes that we are maybe seeing due to climate change. And so in the project, like the project that Catherine was mentioning, we are really looking at it here. I mean, I'm located here in a big area with only 100 inhabitants in independent municipality, which is very rich of resources, if we can say so, because the largest hydropower plant in Iceland is actually located here in the valley, and we have extremely good wind up here in the highlands that the wind turbine companies from the mainland and from Norway are very, very interested in harvesting but in Iceland we actually we are looking at, because Jackie was mentioning this about how many that we have to know the places that are all around us, some heritage sites and important heritage remains. And what we stand for in front of here in Iceland is actually that even though we only have about 1,200 years of settlement here in Iceland, we have only managed to maybe register about 25% of all our heritage remains. So when we now stand in, have to face the impact of climate change with more erosion, coastal erosion, and also up here in the highlands, and then we actually don't know what we are losing in many cases. So one of the things that we are doing in some case studies in the Dashi project that Catherine mentioned was actually how we can use how we can use citizen science to help us to gather information about all these places, and there we can use the immersive and emergent technology a lot, because now we can go with our iPhone and even make a 3D scanning of some remains. And that is something that is because Iceland is very, very rich in technology and high percentage of the nation just have very expensive smartphones already in their pockets. And so we can actually, I see it that we can actually, engage the public to help us to register all the heritage remains and get some more information about that. By having that information, that then we can share that, or not share it, as Michael was mentioning, information and use the virtual reality, just like they have been doing there up in Helmsdale, to show people more what was before and what, and also just so we realize that, okay, we have been going through climate change in earlier times, maybe not at this rapid speed that we are facing now, but here in Iceland, when the settlers came here 1200 years ago, the whole island was covered with woods. And it only took them very, well, 300 years to cut down most of the woods. And then also we had a more activity in the volcanoes that started a kind of a little ice age here in Iceland that was for about 500 years, or until the end of the peak of it was in the end of the 19th century, actually, when the glaciers got as large as we know they got. So since then it has been warming in Iceland, and but when we actually can see and lay down all the remains and even if it's just a old route between the valley here and the fjords, or where they crossed the glacier down to the southeast coast, and a much smaller glacier at that time, 500 years ago, when we can put that into a virtual reality, and hopefully, I'm dreaming of now a digital twin totally of the valley here in the highlands, that we can actually take in higher resolution into Unreal game engine and just add in all the items that we get from the public or from our teams of youth that go out into the field for 3D scanning and photographing. When we can add that in and give that the right narrative in the virtual reality, we can start some dialogue. We can inspire people, and when we can start the dialogue, then there's more chance of that we can have, well, even have people to make some behavioral changes when they understand what is happening, what has happened before, and what is happening, and what we are facing in the future. So that's the benefit of the immersive technologies, that, as Alan was saying, I mean, it gives us the possibility to look into the past, but also into the future, and give us some platform that we can actually stand on and have the dialogue of and all see the same environment in but not just something that is different between each individual. When we and this is also something that I want to use to realize what impacts the green transition can have. I know me and Alan wants a lot of wind turbines to get a green energy, but up here in Iceland, we are a little bit afraid of that also, because that has a huge impact on our wilderness, which is much less impacted by humans than human actions than in many other, well, on the mainland or on the British Isles. So if we can put the wind turbines into the game engines as also, and put them in places and say, oh, is it affecting or impacting some old heritage remains there, or is it really destroying the cultural landscape or the heritage landscape that we have had here for hundreds of years? And then also it comes into the CO2 binding, because that's another issue here in Iceland, that with only 1% of the country covered with woods, we now, of course, want to plant more trees and have more CO2 binding by forestry or reforestation. And so that is also something that we can then add into the virtual reality and use the digital twins of the landscapes to visualize how that is going to impact our cultural landscape. But yeah, now I've been rambling too much.
Thank you very, not at all, Scully. Very, very articulate. Thank you very much for that. And I do think also with respect to Rebecca's question, you may be interested to look at the manifesto that Timespan have created, because I think that there's quite really strong synergies between your activism and the Timespan approach. And also, I think it's not something that we've talked about really, but looking at the sort of tradition of museums in Latin America, where they're often seen as part of a social movement, much more so than here. But I mean, moving on with the Burn Supper, because you know, Burn Suppers have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I think that we've probably done the main course. So the next thing would be the pudding. But between the main course and the pudding is normally an opportunity for people to recite some poems and to drink some toast and so on. So if anybody has something that they want to recite, then now would be an opportunity to do so.
I have something to recite, because
Right.
I'm pretty sure many of you want to hear some nice Icelandic, because I did do a little research on Burns in Icelandic, and I found an old translation of one of his most famous poems, Scots Wahey, and it's from 1849. Actually, it was published in an Icelandic little Icelandic journal, or a magazine that some students in Copenhagen did put together, actually. And so if you so I can read it for you in Icelandic, and then of course I know the Scots, they of course know this poem by heart, and so that's how it sounds in Icelandic. Skotar volans vörðustu með, víg með brús oft hafið séð, velkomnir að blóðgum beð, bjartri eða sigur frægð. Stund og dagur dýr nú dauðinn ógnar hvar sem sér, játfarts að oss æðir her, og hlekkja nægð. Hver vill bera níðings nafn, ná hver bleiðu seðja hrafn, falla þræl og frjálsum jafn, flýt hann burtu sér. Hver vill blynur hildar báls, hjör nú draga hins góða máls, standa bæð og falla frjáls, faran eftir mér. Ánauðar við eymd og grönd, yðar svona þrældómsbönd, viljum láta líf og önd, en leysa úr hlekkjum þá, fellið grimma fjendur því, frelsir hverju höggi í. Sjái oss hrósa, sigri ný, sól eða ornað ná. Cheers for Burns.
Cheers.
Eða skál, eins og við segjum í íslensku.
Egészségünkre. I would like to speak about a little bit about the Hungarian translation of this poem, and I heard the original poem, and in Iceland, it's good in Iceland now, and I realized that because I read the Hungarian translation too. This is the fantastic poem, because in all language is the same feeling, you know, and it's fantastic, I think. And in Hungary, the haggis is in the translation is gömböt. Gömböt. Yes. That's all.
But Ildiko, is it the same like haggis? Your meal.
We don't have haggis. We have
Yes.
the pudding is hurka. Is
Mhm.
hurka. Yes. I think the origin of this hurka is in the Slavish, I think, because we have a lot of in Hungary, in the language Hungary, we have a lot of words with original in German and Slavish and Latin and that's all. Okay.
Cheers.
Egészségünkre. Cheers.
I think I can now introduce Sarah, who is going to sing another great poem from Burns called the Westling Wind.
Westling Wind, yeah.
Which has lots of
Words.
relevance to nature and love and what it's like to be alive, and also a contempt for the gun-wielding aristocracy which runs through Burns's life. So hopefully this is going to work.
Pick me up other than the sniffing. That would be good. Okay. Now whistling wind and slaughtering guns brings autumn's pleasant weather. The moorcock springs, oh, wings among the blooming heather. Now waving grand wonder the plain delights the weary farmer. The moon shines bright as I ride at night to muse upon my charmer. The partridge loves the fruitful fells, the plover loves the mountain. The woodcock haunts the lonely dells, the soaring hern the fountain. Through lofty groves the cushat roves, the path of man to shun it. The hazel bush, oh, hangs the thrush, the spreading thorn the linnet. Thus every kind their pleasure find, the savage and the tender. Some social join and leagues combine, some solitary wander. Avaunt away the cruel sway, tyrannic man's dominion. The sportsman's joy, the murdering cry, the fluttering gory pinion. But Peggy dear, the evening's clear, thick flies the skimming swallow. The sky is blue, the fields in view, all fading green and yellow. Come, let us stray our gladsome way and view the charms of nature. The rustling corn, the fruited thorn, and every happy creature. We'll gently walk and sweetly talk. The silent moon shines clearly. I'll grasp thy waist and fondly pressed, swear how I love thee dearly. Not vernal showers to budding flowers, not autumn to the farmer, so dear can be as thou to me, my fair, my lovely charmer. There you go, bit nervous.
That was
That was great.
amazing. Thank you so much. Wow. Tears.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sarah. So that was Westling Wind, and Now Western Wind, one of his classic poems. If you'll forgive me, I'll play another one if I can share the screen. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability and talent that Sarah does, but and there's lots of I put some links in to some of the if you look there, there's somebody doing the address to the Haggis, nowhere near the quality that Jackie gave us. There's A Fond Kiss by Eddie Reader, which is a lovely rendition of a beautiful song about unrequited love. And there's Billy Connolly, who's a Scottish comedian, doing To a Mouse, which is a poem to a mouse who has been disturbed by somebody in the field cutting the hay, and sort of apologizing to the mouse for disturbing them. And I don't know if you can stand another one. Does anybody else have something to recite? It would like to. There's a song by A Man's a Man for All That, which was opened the Scottish Parliament, but there's a kind of punky version by Paolo Nutini. Do you think I should play that, Paolo Nutini? No. And then maybe if I just leave it there on a recommendation, A Man's a Man, Paolo Nutini, and there's a lovely version also of Auld Lang Syne, which is clearly Burns's most famous song. And Auld Lang, which is so sung at New Year's in all sorts of times and places, perhaps for the most famous being at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. So we have Burns at the end of A Wonderful Life, Auld Lang Syne, which is all about, for old time's sake, it's all about remembering people who may not now be in your life, but were at some time in the past, and taking a moment to do that. But I think that they're all kind of worth a listen. We were going to move on, I think. And Michael, I hope that you're still here, because it was going to fall to you to do the closing speech, which would be the pudding. The pudding I would hope for would be Kraken, which is a mixture of whiskey, cream, raspberries, and oatmeal, and can be really delightful pudding. I'm pleased to see that you are dressed up for the occasion appropriately, Michael. Are you wearing a kilt as well, or?
No. I'm not.
I can only see the top.
But no, I've only a blue sheets. So, I will come back later to the reason why I'm dressed. So it's, of course, it is related to our Burns night that I'm dressed, but I will dress up a little bit more during my speech. Shall I start now, or what? This my.
Yeah, you have the floor.
Yeah, okay. Yes, dear friends of the Burns Night, I'm very, very proud to be with you now and to represent AVICOM, that's the Committee for Audiovisual, New Technologies and Social Media of the International Council of Museums. It's a great honor for me to be here, and my sincere thanks to Alan for inviting me to be part of this important Scotch evening. We have enjoyed a close friendship since the EVICOM annual conference that Alan and the University of St. Andrews hosted last September. And I want now to talk a little bit about Burns, Robert Burns, his relation to sustainability, to immersive learning. Maybe something will be a little bit constructed. And about the relations between Burns and my homeland, that's the Rhineland. I'm living in Bonn, very nice town. The conference last September in St. Andrews, the AVICOM conference, was centered around the theme of the virtual museum, sustainable preservation and promotion of heritage. That was the topic. And St. Andrews and AVICOM will continue to pursue this theme and all that it entails. For example, the involvement of museums in addressing climate change, raising awareness and empowerment for climate protection and environmental protection in general. Immersive learning methods play an important role in this context, by my opinion. They are also becoming increasingly important in museum education programs, as you have seen, including museums' online programs. The title of our roundtable today is a contribution of immersive learning to sustainable development in the climate crisis. The topic has a lot to do with the life, the work, and the worldview of the great Robert Burns. Also, the son of a simple farmer, his parents gave their son Robert a very good school education. And when the family once lived far away from a school, the father taught his son himself. In complete contrast to the schools at that time, the natural sciences were on his father Burns' teaching program. Robert also worked on the farm as a young boy, familiarizing himself with nature and the human influence on nature. This combination of teaching and practical work, it means learning by doing. I can't imagine a better way of immersive learning. When Alan Miller announced a little bit the poem, when Robert Burns later destroyed a mouse's nest while plowing, he took this as an opportunity to dedicate a poem to the mouse that had become homeless. In this poem, to a mouse, he confesses, "I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union." Dear Roundtable, isn't that a brilliant statement that gets to the heart of our environment and climate change problem? Burns not only showed empathy for mice, many of his works reflect his awareness of nature and the environment, always combined with his critical moral reflections. This was quite unusual in his time, before the beginning of the Romanticism, at a time when environmental pollution was beginning with early industrialization in neighboring England, and soon also on the continent. Dear all, I must apologize for joining you so late this evening. I was already afraid that you were already very much under the influence of the water of life. By the way, when Robert Burns was born, the term whiskey had only been around for about 25 years. It was a very new term for this excellent water. I was late because I was invited to a carnival event in a big museum in Bonn. We in the Rhineland are currently celebrating Carnival. And what Burns Night is to the Scots, this is the Carnival to us Rhinelanders. The highest secular festival of the year. The word carnival is derived from the Latin carne vale, which means bye-bye meat. And so the word also explains the reason for carnival. It is a festival before the beginning of the 40-day Christian Lent. Before this begins, there is a last extensive celebration, eating and drinking. We have detailed descriptions of how people in Cologne, in the neighborhood of Bonn, celebrated Carnival from the 16th century. People paraded through the streets in costumes with drums, doing lots of foolish things. One chronicle reports that all the people were drunk. Everybody was drunk. If the Scots had also been there and contributed their water of life, it's hard to imagine what else would have happened. The highlight of today's Rhineland Carnival, the strongholds in the Rhineland are Cologne, Düsseldorf, Aachen, and my hometown of Bonn, is a so-called Rose Monday with its large street carnival and hour-long parades. It is the last Monday before the start of the Christian fasting period. This year it is 12th of February. The first Rose Monday parade took place in Cologne in 1823. In this year, 1823, the carnival was completely reformed and took on its current appearance. I will show you a picture. Here is a book showing the carnival procession in Cologne. It's from the year 1824. So it's a big procession. And I will show you another picture. That is, shows the assembly of the procession in front of a church in Cologne. You see different groups. You see wagons dedicated to different themes, and so on and so on. It was a long. So I think that there were more than 30 different carnival groups participating in the first and second procession in the early 19th century. I talked about that the carnival was reformed in this time. This reform was also about expressing the desire for freedom in the carnival celebrations. This gave rise to guards with military uniforms who wanted to caricature the authorities with their behavior and actions. After all, Cologne and the Rhineland had been annexed to the Kingdom of Prussia at the Congress of Vienna in 1815 to be governed by a Protestant state apparatus in Berlin by Protestant officers who had now been transferred to the Rhineland, naturally did not suit the Catholic Rhinelanders at all. Joining in the carnival celebrations helped to shape them. Robert Burns would certainly have enjoyed it. And he would certainly have put on a jester's cap like the carnivalists. Because under such a cap, everyone is equal. Equality was also a great good for Burns. Burns was a freedom-loving man who always felt uneasy about social constraints. He was so impressed by the French Revolution that some of his contemporaries thought he was a Jacobin. But perhaps he would have enjoyed the carnival simply because there was and is a lot of drinking. We know that Burns was bon vivant and a good drinker. But taking part in the carnival, he would have been well advised to bring his whiskey with from Scotland. Because in the Rhineland, people tend to drink beer. And in Cologne, Würstel, a very special beer that tastes more like water. You have to drink many glasses of it to feel a change in your character. It's called Kölsch. That means coming from Cologne. However, Burns would have particularly enjoyed another Cologne specialty. It's like Harry's. It is a simple dish, essentially and originally poor man's meal. It's called Himmel und Erd, that's dialect, the Cologne dialect, and that means heaven and earth, and consists of mashed potatoes, applesauce, fried liver sausage, and black pudding with fried onions on top. I will show you a picture. This is Himmel und Erd, heaven and earth.
Looks great.
If Burns had had the opportunity to try this dish, he would have preferred to become a Rhinelander. No, he had maybe introduced this dish in his Scottish homeland. And I'm sure Burns would not only have written the poem to a haggis, but also a poem about the delicious Cologne home-cooked meal. Both dishes, haggis and Himmel und Erd, actually testify to a close bond between Scotch and the Rhinelanders. That has to be said. And what is particularly important, animal waste is utilized in both dishes. This means that both dishes are sustainable and climate friendly. How to prepare the Scottish and Rhineland dishes should be taught in a cooperative online practical cookery course. This would give us the wonderful experience of immersive learning. I would now like to propose a toast to Robert Burns and all of us along the lines of never drink whiskey without water and never drink water without whiskey. And I would like to combine this toast with our triple carnival battle cry, Alaf. That means all away with all conventions. Let's practice this cry briefly together. I say a keyword, and then we all say, and we will raise our hands, then we say, Alaf. And now, do I understand? Alaf. So, I begin. Rhineland, and now together, Alaf.
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 Put on your microphones.
Ah,
So, I tried again. Rhineland, Alaf.
Alaf.
Allah.
Robert Burns, Alaf.
Allah.
Allah.
Scotland, Alaf.
Allah.
Allah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank
That was
you.
Fantastic.
it. Scott.
Cheers.
Well,
Sláinte.
Sláinte.
Prost.
So
Yes.
I think really that there's no way of topping that. So I think that's a good way to end, unless we're open to anybody else who wants to have a go. If not, I'm quite prepared to thank everybody for participation, particularly Jonathan for tolerating my foibles along the way.
Are you kidding? This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Alan, Catherine, and all of you for coming. We really, the Immersive Learning Research Network would really love to collaborate with you. I think this is our inaugural Burns Night. We'd love to continue this as a tradition, and we would love to collaborate with you to really make some actual differences and some change. You're amazing people with great expertise, and our mission is to help humanity and our world. I made sure that our world got put into the mission statement because of the preeminent issues surrounding climate change. And so this is more than just a webinar. This is really phenomenal, and we hope that this is just the beginning. So cheers to you all.
Cheers to you all.